I got a lot of good information watching Spitfire's show last night. Um, they touched on some things that were pretty interesting that I actually was not aware of. A lot of you may be aware of this already. I knew general stuff, but I didn't know any specifics. And what's going on in this article is some, some pretty out there information. And I'm just going to quickly read through the article, and I'll let you guys make your own opinions on it. But it's pretty crazy. And it's called Operation Vigilant Eagle. Is this really how we honor our nation's veterans? Let's skip down here a little bit. Despite the fact that the U.S. boasts more than 23 million veterans who have served in World War II through Korea, Vietnam, the Gulf War, Iraq, and Afghanistan, the plight of veterans today, while often overlooked, is common knowledge. Impoverished, unemployed, lacking any decent health benefits, homeless, traumatized mentally and physically, struggling with depression, thoughts of suicide, marital stress. Making matters worse, thanks to Operation Vigilant Eagle, a program launched by the Department of Homeland Security in 2009, military veterans returning from Iraq and Afghanistan are also being characterized as extremist and potential domestic terrorist threats because they may be disgruntled, disillusioned, and suffering from the psychological effects of war. As a result, these servicemen and women, many of whom are decorated, are finding themselves under surveillance, threatened with incarceration or involuntary commitment, or arrested, all for daring to voice their concerns about the alarming state of our union and the erosion of our freedoms. An important point to consider, however, is that the government is not merely targeting individuals who are voicing their discontent so much as it is locking up individuals trained in military warfare who are voicing feelings of discontent. Under the guise of mental health treatment and with the complicity of government psychiatrists and law enforcement officials, these veterans are increasingly being portrayed as ticking time bombs in need of intervention. In 2012, for instance, the Justice Department launched a pilot program aimed at training SWAT teams to deal with confronting confrontations involving highly trained and often heavily armed combat veterans. In the 4 years since the start of Operation Vigilant Eagle, the government has steadily ramped up its campaign to silence dissidents, especially those with military backgrounds. Coupled with the DHS dual reports on right-wing and left-wing extremism, which broadly define extremists as individuals and groups that are mainly anti-government, rejecting federal authority in favor of state or local authority, or rejecting government authority entirely. These tactics have boded ill for anyone seen as opposing the government. One particular troubling mental health label being applied to the veterans and others who challenge the status quo is oppositional defiance disorder. As journalist Anthony Martin explains, an ODD diagnosis denotes that the person exhibits symptoms such as questioning of authority, the refusal to follow directions, stubbornness, the unwillingness to go along with the crowd, the practice of disobeying or ignoring orders. Persons may also receive such a label if they are considered free thinkers, nonconformist, or individuals who are suspicious of large centralized governments. At one time, the accepted protocol among mental health professionals was to reserve the diagnosis of oppositional defiance disorder for children or adolescents who exhibited uncontrollable defiance toward their parents and teachers. The case of 26-year-old decorated Marine Brandon Robb, who was targeted because of his Facebook post, interrogated by government agents about his views on government corruption, arrested with no warning, labeled mentally ill for subscribing to so-called conspiratorial views about the government, detained against his will in a psych ward for standing by his views, and isolated from his family, friends, and attorneys, is a prime example of the government's war on veterans. Robb's case exposes the seedy underbelly of a governmental system that is targeting Americans, especially military veterans, for expressing their discontent over America's rapid transition to a police state. On Thursday, August 16, 2012, a swarm of local police, Secret Service, and FBI agents arrived at Robb's home, asking to speak with him about posts he had made on his Facebook page, made up of song lyrics, political opinions, and dialogue used in a political thriller virtual card game. Among the posts cited as troublesome were lyrics to a song by a rap group, Swollen members, and Robb's views, shared increasingly by a number of Americans, that the 9/11 terrorist attacks were an inside job. After a brief conversation without providing any explanation, levying any charges against Rob, or reading him his rights, law enforcement officials then handcuffed Rob and transported him first to the police headquarters, then to a medical center where he was held against his will due to an alleged concerns that his Facebook posts were terrorist in nature. Outraged onlookers filmed the arrest and posted the footage to YouTube, where it quickly went viral. Meanwhile, the Rutherford Institute came to Rob's assistance, which, combined with heightened media attention, may have helped prevent Rob from being successfully disappeared by the government. In a hearing on August 20th, government officials pointed to Rob's Facebook post as the sole reason for their concern and for his continued incarceration. Ignoring Rob's explanation about the fact that Facebook posts were being read out of context, Rob was sentenced to up to 30 days further confinement in a psychiatric ward. While in the psych ward, Rob reported being interrogated by medical staff about his views about the government and threatened by a doctor with brainwashing. Rob's legal team, provided by the Rutherford Institute, immediately began petitioning the courts for his release. On August 23rd, Circuit Court Judge Alan Sherritt declared the government's case to be lacking in factual allegations and ordered Rob immediately released. However, for the tens of thousands of individuals detained, wrongfully or otherwise, under civil commitment laws every year, regaining their freedom is nearly impossible, predicated as it is on a bureaucratic legal system and judicial system. Within days of Rob being seized at his Virginia home on August 16, 2012, and forcibly held in Virginia's psych ward, news reports started surfacing of other veterans having similar experiences. That the government is using the charge of mental illness as the means by which to immobilize and disarm these veterans is diabolically brilliant. With one stroke of a magistrate's pen, the servicemen are being declared mentally ill, locked away against their will, and stripped of their constitutional rights. Make no mistake, these returning veterans are being positioned as enemy number one. Given the government's increasing view of veterans as potential domestic terrorists, it makes me think twice about a new Michigan law that adds the veterans designation on Michigan driver's license and state IDs. Hailed by politicians as a way to make it easier for military veterans to access discounts from retailers, restaurants, hotels, and vendors across the state, it will also make it that much easier for the government to identify and target veterans who dare to challenge the status quo. Particularly telling is a training exercise for the Explorers program, which trains young people for careers in law enforcement, in which teenage boys and girls dressed like quasi-SWAT teams and armed with pellet guns attempt to take down a disgruntled Iraq war veteran who had already taken out two people, one slumped on his desk, the other covered in blood on the floor. As a side note, the Explorers program, an extension of the Boy Scouts, is unnervingly similar to the Hitler Youth program used by the Nazis to indoctrinate young people into a police state mindset, chillingly documented by H.W. Koch and the Hitler Youth Origins and Development 1922 to 1945. This brings me back to present-day America, with its penchant for endless wars that empty our national coffers while fattening those of the military-industrial complex. Does anyone else find it heartbreaking and ironic that we raise our young people on a steady diet of violence and military action, sell them on the idea that defending freedom abroad by serving in the military is their patriotic duty, and then when they return home bruised and battle-scarred and suddenly serious about defending their freedoms at home, we treat them like criminal suspects? Brandon Robb understands this all too well. While serving in the Marines in Afghanistan in November 2011, Robb put pen to paper in order to flesh out some of his concerns about the dismantling of freedom in America. His concerns echo those of countless Americans like myself, dismayed at the nation's descent into authoritarianism. So anyways, that's pretty much it, guys. I won't provide a link. I pretty much showed it all right there. But, yep, that is Operation Vigilant Eagle. And that is more proof right there. You can go look up more information on it for yourself, that this is a program they are using to remove the veterans. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.